Hi, Travis.
Hey, Tom, you're right.
Paolo.
Hello, boys.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Travis, you've been posting a bit about the budget coming up recently. There's a lot going on in hospitality about the sort of looming crisis. And then there's also another sort of crisis that everyone is talking about at the moment, which is, I think, inside the industry, this sort of crisis of hospitality, literally not being very hospitable in businesses. And that's why I'm super excited to talk to you today, Paolo, because I think more than anyone I've ever met, I think you are a man on a mission to deliver hospitality and kind of exude that power of hospitality in what you do and how you talk about it. So that's, I guess, going to be the thread of a lot of what we talk about today. But before we get into all of that, I guess, do you want to give us a intro into you, how you started out, how you got into the industry?
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, there's a lot of going on, especially big, powerful start when start talking about government. I recently was with the MP, and I have a hard time talking to those guys because I feel like if I start, I will never stop preaching. But a little bit about me, yes, I born in Brazil and left São Paulo at a very young age to go to New York and open a coffee shop in Brooklyn with a friend of ours, friend of my family, Francisco Silva, who was happening. He was an architect who was burned out and wanted to do something completely different. And I just happened to ask if I could come. And, he said yes. And funny enough, my family allowed me to go. And anyway, so went to New York to open a coffee shop. And from a coffee shop, it was amazing. It's an amazing story just because, Francisco was 15 years older than me, 30-year-old guy, architect, had his career set up and to leave everything behind to open his coffee shop. And here's, two completely random guys to do this in Brooklyn, in completely different country, different culture, different environments. And we went on to, get the building and talking to landlords and sign a lease and coming up with the concept, although he had a partner who, was Brazilian, but Brazilian American.
Yeah.
And so she knew all the ropes and she was part of it. So she obviously helped us with the whole thing. But which I'll make it short, but was fascinating of all this is literally, we drove a van every day, an hour to get to this location once we had the location, and then coming up with the concept, which was a coffee shop, in a small version of what a Starbucks looked like with pastries and coffee and sandwiches and cake and all that stuff. And I remember, putting the signs, and Francisco did a really nice design. And then once we, the process of doing everything. And then I remember, opening the place for the first time and literally watching someone having a cake and a cup of coffee for the first time. It was so intense, and I think it was the feeling of being a chef, or when you have people over at your house, when you cook something, they go, wow, this is amazing. But that process of from A to Z, where you're creating that. We created the process, and then even the logistics. How do I pay? How do I do this? Where's the line?
Yeah.
Where's the queue? How do I answer? Where do I sit down? Anyway, I fell in love with this process. It was the most incredible thing I've ever done, and stuff that you're never gonna learn all that stuff in university. You're never gonna learn until you actually do it, and talking to customers, and then seeing a person coming back again and again, and then all of a sudden you're building this connection with people. So that was fascinating. And then from there, the business was only open for I think 18 months, and Francisco and his partner want to go a different way. And that's when I started my journey, because I left there and here I am in New York with no CV whatsoever, with broken English, and I had to find a job. And I knew that I probably had enough money to keep me going for, I don't know, 2-3 months. So I went to Soho. I found out Soho was the place to be, and I applied to be a dishwasher in this Japanese restaurant, where I washed dishes for 12, 14-hour days, and it was insane.
Yeah.
It was scary.
I love it, because you're in this coffee shop, and was it the business building bit that really got you, or was it the connection piece, like the people connection that kind of sucked you in?
Yeah, good question. I think it was almost like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they'll come.
Right. Okay, so seeing the power of it.
So to watch we're coming in Brooklyn at the time. It was a lot of people from Haiti, a lot of Jewish people, and here's me and Francisco, completely different people coming into this environment where building a relationship with the landlord, and then coming up with the concept, and then coming up, where are we going to get our pastry from? Where does this go? The coffee, all those people that you get involved with until the curtains open up, and here you are, like you have a business in New York, and people are coming in, and people are coming, and they're trying, and they're asking questions. Where are you from? And I think it's such a beauty. We're creators as human beings, and I think we all have the power to do whatever we want to do, and I guess when you're in that age, you don't really think about all the things. We don't think. I wish someone told me about what failure looks like. Failure is just an incident that happens. Let's move on. You keep going. Like we all have. So I think the energy of coming from a different country and being able to build something and not look back and just keep going until you do it and it happens, and you go, wow, I did that.
Yeah. Did it translate to moving into a kitchen and washing dishes?
No, not at all. But I think that was the survivor instinct, because I didn't want to ask my family for money, and I knew that they were not happy. For me to even stay there as Francisco went back, because his visa was about to expire, and he was coming back anyway. But I mean, even by law, I don't think I was allowed to be there on my own, to be quite honest. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's amazing that you're allowed to go.
Yeah, so I was, allowed to go was one thing. With him there was one thing, but now him going back, that's and then, but anyway, I remember, calling my grandfather and my grandfather, look, you're in the best country in the world. There's nothing here really for you. Just go for it and do it.
I think learning that lesson. So I vividly remember having a thought about, I want to run my own business, I want to do something, but it felt like a bit of an impossible dream. I was working in a pretty good job, like decent salary, corporate, kind of big company, working in good things, and it felt like that was so far away, because I think I didn't quite have that. There was a sense of drive or that urgency. I think you obviously got that really young, doing that realizing that a concept from this in here, it's in your head, and then all of a sudden you've made it reality, and it's happening, it's working, people are loving it.
Well, you sort of learn it's possible, don't you?
You learn it's possible, and that's really intoxicating. And I think to do that at such a young age is incredible, because you suddenly say, wow, I can do anything. Like, you just have to make it a reality, right? And I think that's a really powerful lesson. And then obviously you got brought back down to earth.
Oh my God!
In the Japanese dishwasher.
Completely. And the sad story is that I was there for a few months, and I went to take out the rubbish, and there was glass in the rubbish, and I cut both of my legs, and the next morning when I came to work, they fired me. Wow. And it's funny because now that looking back, I didn't really think much about it. I said, no problem. I was worried, really was, and I went across the street. There was a bagel shop, and I got a bagel and a coffee, and I got the New York Times. And back then, I don't know if they still have now, I'm sure, the job section. And then I found out that Columbus Avenue is the place to be. And I remember walking Columbus Avenue. Even it's not as good as today as it was, but across the street, you walk down a mile, and it's restaurants every single corner. From 80 all the way to Times Square. And I knocked on every door, and I asked for a job, and I found a job within a day. And then now I'm in front of the house. So I had the clothing, and then I had to serve bread, and I had to serve coffee and pour iced tea, and all of a sudden I'm dressed well. But I never forget, after getting the job, getting the call, and working that week, the first day, every waiter, 5 different waiters came to me with $50, $70, $100. I'm like, whoa! I made more money in one day than I made washing dishes all month.
Yeah, incredible.
So I went, okay, I can actually survive doing this. Yeah,
amazing.
Plus, I didn't have to get yelled at all day. And for me, what really woke me up was that I had my energy towards a customer had an impact. And so I realized how if I was really good at this, all those waiters are gonna be nice to me, because eventually I want to take their job. And I noticed when I was good, and the waiters start fighting. No, Paul is in my section today, because I really work hard. Then I realized, oh, okay, I can be even better at this. So it was a very simple job, but I had an impact. And for me, what I love, I had the conversation with people. So that was the part that I loved.
Yeah.
Interact with people.
And were you meant to be doing that, or was that your flair that you were bringing to it?
Yeah, you kind of meant, because as a busboy, you bring the bread, you bring the butter, you bring the water, and then you clear the table, you do iced teas, coffees, and that's your and you constantly cleaning. So you have direct access with people. When they raise their arm, you're the first one to go with ketchup, whatever, cruets, whatever they need. But when you're really good, it's people will notice, and you become part of the service. Not only the waiter's good, but you were good at it, and then you becoming part of this little team that, as good as you are, they're gonna be even better. And in America, when you do good service, people really look after you. So I remember just people, no, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you, because you work so hard at it. And I went, wow, this is great.
It reminds me of something. I think you posted a video this week about this, the Barack Obama thing about getting shit done.
Yeah.
Being someone who, whatever your job is, however big or small, if you just get shit done.
That's it.
And be seen to be getting it done.
That's it.
People will notice eventually, maybe not immediately, but if you just do whatever you're given, you do it really well, and you say, right, that's it. Then don't worry about everything else. It will work itself.
Don't worry about the title. Yeah. Don't worry about how big the thing is.
I love that, because I remember and then crossing over going to California, and I remember being in Beverly Hills, and I was trialing for this job, and in Beverly Hills, someone needs to die, a waiter, in order for you to get this job. You don't get these jobs, right? Yeah. And the people that work daytime, they're not the superstars. Superstars work at night, and these guys are like, and then you look in the parking lot, it's all nice cars, because they're they make a lot of money.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I remember doing this trialing, and this waiter goes, listen, just remember this, okay? Every smile. Everything you crumb the table, you do something, always do it with a smile. Just think it's always an extra dollar coming your way.
Yeah.
And once you're really good at it, people realize that. And he was from Guatemala at Simpson. I'll never forget that. And it was just such a nice thing, because he really wanted me to get that job, and I got it. And then I remember it took me months in order to move to nighttime, because there was a position open, and because your money just tripled, right?
Wow.
So instead of you starting coming in the morning during breakfast and lunch and leaving at 2 or 3, now you come in 2 or 3, 4 or 5, and you leave at 11. But you just remember the bills and the checks are a lot higher. So you're serving wine and doing that. So now you're making $500 a night. You're going, hello, so everything changes. So, you have that. And often people say, oh, we do a better job because we get tipped. No, we do a better job because it's just what we do. And then getting money and tip on top of it, it's just nice to be recognized. I don't think anything's wrong with that.
Yeah. We were talking to someone in a previous episode about, no one in hospitality really is, of course everyone wants to earn money, but I don't think anyone is really money driven. People are always driven by something else that is about, I don't know, whether you're creating something. It's quite, I think it's quite a creative industry, even though it's not deemed as a creative.
It really is
part of the creative industries. But I think so. But obviously, money is almost like a dirty word in the industry. Like companies don't talk about creating loads of profit for shareholders. It's not something that is exciting or maybe engaging, but it should be something that is talked about, because I think it's part of the negative perception in the industry that it's all low paid and it's all kind of, you can earn good money, right? Especially as a younger person.
I love that you said that, because for me, there's nothing wrong with going to, we go out all the time, we eat out all the time. I remember, and I'm sure the both of you did the same day, how often I went to get a job and I worked somewhere. First of all, this is something I used to do. Before I even go apply for a job, I'll go witness that place a few times before I even apply. By the time I apply, I already knew the GM, because I want to feel the energy.
Yeah.
But how many times I took a job and I said, look, I'll work for less. in order to get to this point, to prove myself. We do in hospitality all the time.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's different cultures, right? And people can say a lot of things. America, it's part of their cultures to be generous. And I don't think is anything wrong with going out of your way to give someone extra cash just because they did a good job. Sometimes people really come out of their way to do something, and it's a nice thing to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people make your day, and he's like, you know what, why not?
Yeah.
And I love that. And the creative part, I got to answer to that. But if you think about it, if you think inside a restaurant, you have HR, you have accounting, you have PR, you have sales and marketing.
Yeah.
You have people, you have chefs, you have the wine program, the cocktail program, and now you have social media. In order to get the food to the table in minutes and precise, and in order to get the entire restaurant, entire company to come into the website, to get you to be a customer, and to drive that, to get the service, we are super creative.
Yeah. And
Extremely creative.
And obviously you can be more or less creative in the industry, but it's part of the process that I love in my business is coming up with talking about menus,
Exactly.
wine lists, the way things look and feel, and the music and all the lighting and all that sort of stuff. And when you get to pick it all, and we're going to talk a little bit later about you picking everything out at Margot. But I mean, that's an amazing process. But not everyone in the industry gets to do that, especially if you work for another company and you are part of you're a cog in a machine that is executing a plan. I think some people don't worry about that because they like to execute and they just like to hit numbers or whatever, and that's the thing. But I think there's so many creative people in hospitality, and it should be part of how we talk about the industry. It is a creative industry, maybe should be seen like that. But I want to go back to something that I've heard you talk about before in various different ways, and you talk about this thing about breaking bread. And was that something that you kind of learn like early on when you're in the restaurants in Columbus Avenue, kind of that being part of a team, sitting down, having lunch, and the power of that, and what that means?
Question. I even get emotional. I'm not going to cry. Okay. I love that you asked that question. Look, for me, it's this. And I think if I really am honest about what that is, it will make sense. Okay, so you just got to imagine that people come to the restaurant industry from all different parts of life. Right? You can be especially in America. You can be going to Harvard. And you happen to work in Boston, and you're working at nighttime. I seen this. Guys in second year law taking the order, really smart.
Yeah.
But they need the money. Or for someone like me, for example, that came from a different country. Now we're in this environment that is a restaurant, and we work hard. And then all of a sudden, you've got people from all over the world. You've got people from Australia. You've got people from Chile. You've got people from Poland. And then there's people, I remember New York, from Morocco, people from all over the world. And what I find there, that at that age, you're looking to have a mentor. You're looking to have someone that kind of inspires you. And then we look up to our general managers, right? And then and we do the briefing. We all go in a circle, and we eat our meal before we get on the service. Then we service. We make our money. And I think this part, you're breaking bread. Like if the three of us were doing something together, and we go to a restaurant, the moment that we're eating together, it's a sacred moment.
Yeah.
Whether I've witnessed all my life people getting divorced, people getting in a fight, people celebrating a birthday, anniversary. So everything happens. You witness human beings in all from different walks of life, from presidents to really people that couldn't barely afford to eat, and you're seeing all this happening right at your roof. So I think the importance of being in that environment and wanting something more and learning more and want to be more and how can I get more?
Yeah.
And then you wear the two hats where you go from this entire journey to being a boss, what it is to be an operator. So when I hire somebody or to work for you, man, you have the opportunity to be a mentor to this human being, whether they're amazing or not. But do the best you can to educate them, provide for them, and being someone that they can go through that journey, and it's because everybody wants to arrive, right? Everybody wants to get the elevator from the lobby to the penthouse. But what people don't understand is that the journey that you're in, whether you want to be an actor, a movie star, but you work in a restaurant, do that part so well that people are going to remember that part.
Yeah.
Make your little money, work so hard, and keep growing and keep developing. And I think, often we forget that, our industry is so incredible. And so this moment that people are breaking bread inside your building, or it's so beautiful. And I think it's something that needs to be respected.
Yeah, I love that. Looking at it as a privilege to provide those moments for people.
Yeah.
And of course, guests can be arseholes, right?
Exactly.
People have bad days, but most of the time, and I think about regulars in my business, we have a fantastic set of people who come into our business, and it's a real pleasure to serve them and see them and be a little part of that bit for them.
That's it.
And then they're going to pay us for that sort of privilege, and it's like that's a really great perspective on it.
And hold on, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read the book To Kill a Mockingbird, you never judge a human being until you walk in their shoes.
Yeah.
So if you just that person that came in a restaurant in a bad mood, that was he's going through something. And so what we should do in our restaurants is as tough and rude they are to you, you be as nice as you can, and by the end of the night they're gonna apologize to you. And it worked every single time because we don't know what people are going through. So our job is to be neutral and not to judge. Restaurants, hotels, people judge. It's automatically that you judge a person by the way they're dressed within 45 seconds, the way they shake your hand, the way they do things. But our job is to be neutral, to be kind, to have empathy, and it's hard to do, but that is the job.
How do you teach that to people?
It's wow, that's a good question. You start as you're hiring people, right? And I learned this from Denny Meyer. Does this person has a kind heart? Does this person have empathy? Does this person have curious intelligence? Are they asking questions? When you're doing a briefing, if people are quiet, I don't allow anybody to be quiet. Travis, you're quiet today. Tell me about this dish. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. If you're constantly educating, right? And often, I talk about football, which annoys people a lot, but you're a player, so you enjoy this.
Yeah.
So if you take a journey of a footballer, you start early, and so what is their job? Their job is to, I have my son Tristan now is playing for Millwall. We just signed. He's at school and he's at football 5 days a week. He plays on Saturday. Sunday he rests, but he goes training. So we see the Messis and the Ronaldos and the Neymar from this world. And if people will focus on Neymar because he didn't focus as much as those two have done. And look at them; they're still at it. So whatever you do in life, if you start from, it's almost, for me, I always look at a restaurant is like a classroom. So let's teach each other. If you come to me with 50%, and I give 50% of me, or my team does give our managers, and we look after people. So together we're 100. But we need to embrace those people. So let's say someone comes to work for you for a month and they're not really what you want. And so we should do a briefings, and we should open a bottle of champagne and say goodbye to them, even though they were not necessarily for us, but they're going to be good for someone else. So I think is those questions that you ask at the beginning of hiring someone: empathy, curious intelligence, integrity. What is integrity? Doing something even when someone is not looking. So when you get people to inside your environment, and they know that's the environment that I'm going to learn, I'm going to learn. When I make a mistake, I'm going to raise my arm and I'm going to be honest about it. And it's okay. We're not brain surgeons. We're not nurses. We're not doing, all we're doing is trying to get a plate of food in front of you on the right time, a bottle. And the worst scenario that can happen in a restaurant is we're going to spill a bottle of red wine on you, and the owners are going to pay for it. We're going to pay for dry cleaning. We're going to apologize. But if you think about it, it's creating a team that whether you're a GM or a KP, You know, we all have a part to play. You know, if you're an actor in a play in the West End and you're doing Lion King, if you're the Lion King and you don't show up for the shift, we got a problem. There's not a replacement.
Yeah.
So often we blame the young people about not showing up or not doing this. Yeah, that's happening, but it's a lot of good young people out there too.
Yeah.
So create a job where they want to be in.
Yeah.
They want to check in. They want to clock in, and don't treat them like just a check. Treat them like a human being.
And that,
You know.
I guess what I love about it is I see job ads all the time and people are advertising. They want looking for the best new GM, looking for a fantastic this, that, the other.
Yeah.
And the idea that they'll just go and hire the perfect person.
Yeah.
Who's going to be ready, finished, 100% exactly what someone wants.
And it's a nonsense, isn't it?
I love what you're saying, which is
but
you have to teach them.
I love that. I see those ads, and I see the price of what they're paying for a GM. I'm like, are you joking?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
made that as a commie. I wouldn't take that job either. Pay them well. Why do we have? Why our industry should pay well? GMs can do really well. Companies should be well. Pay people well. Feed them well. I came in an environment where, who cooked for us? It was probably the youngest chef in the kitchen. It was probably a commie who made a pasta that it was too hard. It didn't have anything in it. And you're supposed to work with that all day for 12 hours with that food in your belly. No, provide the best meal there is. Have different things for them to eat, and especially now, there's vegetarians, there are vegans. Provide something good, because then they're gonna work for you, knowing, wow, I eat well, I'm trained well, I'm learning this. If I want to move up, there's an opportunity for me. And of course, you want all the things from them, how they behave, how they work, how they do that. But I think it's a partnership.
Yeah. And it feels like the industry is in a better place than perhaps when we started out.
Oh yes.
I think companies are doing lots of good things, but at the same time, that some of that feels like you're going through the motions now. Like the benefits that some companies provide are just all sort of quite similar, and people aren't necessarily thinking, okay, what do the kids want now? And they ask them. It's just provide some sort of platform of packages that, okay, we do this. And the pay remains pretty low, and so they're not sort of we're not going hard at it, but at the same time, letting lots of people into the industry that perhaps don't have that curiosity and that sort of that the right skills or the right attitude to be great.
Yeah.
So it's just like low barrier to entry, let everyone in, don't overinvest, because some of them you might be wasting your money, and then just let it all go out the door as well. And hopefully within that you find some nuggets of gold. But that's such you waste loads of time and energy.
Yeah, it's a very intensive way of building teams and companies.
Bottom trawling kind of style. I see it a lot, And I wanted to ask you a question about your. So I think that you are someone who has talked about learning is like a lifelong thing, and you take lessons from all sorts of different places. So, I'm sometimes quite surprised by some of the references that you give that aren't just. It's not just about hospitality. It'll be from your whole life, from a person you met, or your mum, or or all sorts of different people, and literature and all that sort of stuff. You seem like you are very good at holding on to lessons and finding lessons in everything. Do you always have that? You always curious? Where does that come from?
That's a great question. I did. It's funny. I always love quotes, and I always found interesting. Like Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
I have a dream. I mean, it's I guess I always try to put myself in their skin. What it's like to be in that situation where, I think often we have so good. I was born in Brazil, had an incredible childhood, a great family, a youngest out of 6 with a single mother, but we had a brilliant life. And coming to New York, we have everything,
Yeah.
So I think going back to, climbing Kilimanjaro in 2013, with Ashley Palmer Watts and the incredible team where you see real poverty. But back in those days, I always wonder, what can I read? How can I make myself better? right? Because now I left school in a young age, and I always want to learn. I love quotes. I think if you see my Instagram, there's always a quote. There's always a message. So I preach a lot. So I think that, we're so lucky to be in this place called Earth and to learn. So if we're here, everything going, you got to be curious. You got to, how can I learn this? How can I be good at this? And then we have this incredible body that don't tell me that I can do this, because I'm going to go do it just to show you that I can.
Yeah.
So I think from the young age, I was always eager to go and ask questions. How can I do this? How can I? For me, I was always a visual learner. So I remember watching a lot of football because I was a really good football player. Still am. And I always watch a video and I can do the same thing very quickly if I were to read something. So I just knew that if I had to read something, I'll have to read twice. If I had to watch something, so I was curious about people coming into the restaurants and they like certain things. So yeah, I love learning. I think it's really important that, especially now you have so much coming at you from all ends. I think it's still important to read a book, and I think it's really important to ask questions about this book. And now we have so many things coming at us, lessons, a master class, this app now that you can watch all these incredible people. I'm sitting there like a student because I want to learn.
Yeah, you can go on Instagram and find any
so
recipe,
much,
cocktails,
and cooking and podcasts. What we're doing now, I remember watching my wife cook and listening to podcasts, and then I went, God, this is amazing. So we have this channel, and you were talking about music. Music is incredible because I really believe it's a spiritual journey, especially in these incredible bands. There's always, I just watched the movie with Bruce Springsteen and this part of his life that I didn't really know about it. How incredible it is. I think when you bring something to the masses, and I think hospitality is one of those things. If you look at COVID, who's out there making food? Chefs. Who's out there delivering these foods? Us. Who's out there making sure people are okay? NHS. Who's out there? Who's looking after our kids? Teachers. Why can't we work in environments and have a government that provides for those people and make sure they're looked after?
Yeah,
it shouldn't be this difficult.
And I remember having a conversation with a team, and we were doing we're talking about the year coming. Just had a great year. We're talking about the year coming up, and a chef said, and I was trying to get across that we need to go to, well, as always, all operators,
cut your labour.
Do more. No, it wasn't cut your labour. It was actually put more labour on. But it was actually about delivering hospitality. It's kind of like we're doing great numbers, but we need to deliver real hospitality because we're missing that. And if we don't deliver it, all of that will slide, and eventually people will go somewhere else. And it was a site that was in a great spot, and it was on the up. But we were struggling because the people coming through the door, the training wasn't there, all this sort of stuff. And I was saying to the team, this is the task. Forget the numbers; they will come. It's about looking after people.
That's it.
And standards. And there's a chef stood up and said, "Oh, we're not brain surgeons. We're not. We're cooking food and putting it on a plate." And I said, "Yeah, but," I understand that sentiment. And I said to him, "But if you just come out of brain surgery, what do? You go celebrate, as if it's gone well. You go celebrate in a restaurant, in a pub, in a thing. It's what people do when they want to celebrate, commiserate. It's what we do as humans, right? We go out and
it's
we
generally pretty
break
special
bread
moments.
And share it, and being able to. So there is a, maybe it's a bit grandiose, but I think there is a lofty aspect of providing hospitality, as well as, an everyday sort of need.
But it's still like an everyday need of, like, lots of people would say, like, the best moment of their morning is buying their morning coffee, or, that pint that we'll have in about an hour and a half's time. Like,
that's the greatest point right there. There's two things here. First of all, hospitality is for every business. Car, retail. I can take you to our gallery right now in Mayfair, and we can walk right through it. Not one person will say hello to you. Okay?
Yeah.
If Bill Gates walked through that and they didn't recognize him with the jeans and T-shirt. Now, I can guarantee you, if every time you walk to our gallery and everybody goes, "Good afternoon, how are you? Is there anything I can assist you with? My name is Paulo. I'm just sitting back here, but just let me know." I guarantee you increase your sales.
100%.
So it's not for hotel, pubs, restaurants, coffee shops. It's for every business. The way you walk in a car dealership at Audi and the way someone treats you. Not just pushing you to buy that car, but has the knowledge of the products, talks to you like a human being, asks you questions, perhaps give you the business card. So I think, that's the thing that's missing, and that's one thing that Danny Meyer's been driving for so long. This hospitality, it can be in any business, not just going to business school, but if you have a hospitality along with that, it's just, if you treat someone with the most respect, there's got to be value for money. It's almost like if you go to rent a car, you gotta, let's say if you have every car in the book, from a family car to a motorcycle to a Mini to a Ferrari to a Testarossa, it's just what a wine list should look like. Not just have the big boys so people can spend money. Have a wine list that has a wine for 35 pounds. That has a wine for 45 pounds, 55. So I think that thing that you mentioned is so important. How often, I love going to my regular coffee shop. Paulo, the usual, oat milk now, right? And those are the things that we miss COVID.
Yeah.
COVID was us being reborn. It was the universe trying to teach us something that we're doing everything wrong, spiritually, period. And it hit every industry there is, whether you're a believer or not. For us to start again, and start fresh again, looking after people, treating people with kindness, as a company, being a CEO and ask you that question, am I doing this correct? Same thing you said, if you, as someone that's 18, 19, 20 years old, going to a company, going to a proper induction, going through a training program that is either whatever position I'm in, it's for 1 week or 2 weeks. I'm guided by someone that's going to teach me. I'm going to take a test. By the time I get the floor, right? If you get, as an operator, you get to the floor, and that's why McDonald's and you can make fun of those companies, but you can go to McDonald's in Ethiopia, in New York, the product, number one, is a Big Mac, Coke, and fries. And baby, that thing is coming out perfectly.
Yeah.
And the system's in place, the way everything's packaging, the way you fry the fries, and the minute, and the temperature, and the way it comes out, everything's the same because they've been taught right. So those are the things, as operators, there's a lot of great companies, there are a lot of bad companies. But essentially is how we are treating them.
I think a bit of a learning curve for me was when I started out, I always wanted to work in the nicest place, the best, best place, the nicest place.
Me too, best uniform.
And all of that stuff, and kind of it was all about like higher end quality. And I had learned lessons along the way about different businesses being different parts of the market, and they make loads of money and they're great at what they do, and all the segmentation things and how that's important. You can get amazing businesses all over the place. And one of the best journeys I went on I didn't get the job, or I can't even remember what happened, but it was with Yum Brands, so KFC. And they had a brilliant process from start to finish. It felt really, like a really engaging process. They communicated really well, good people, and I did a day out with an area manager, and it was really, they really looked after me on that day, and I felt that's a company I could really work for. Ultimately, I don't think I would have enjoyed the QSR chicken bit, for that long. It kind of wasn't for me, but the company itself was brilliant.
Exactly.
And I just thought and like you say about McDonald's or whoever it is, whether that's the product you want to be working with, those companies are as good as they are for a reason, right?
They are, and they do the training. Same thing with Starbucks or companies that, Disney has the best training there is when it comes to hospitality. 4 Seasons, they really mean what they say. They really want to be the best there is. So they really, so there's a lot of companies out there but those companies, that's why they're all over the place. You go to Starbucks, same thing. That was not the design of the CEO to have those Starbucks everywhere. And how often I've been to places where I went, there's a Starbucks, because you know what? I'm going to get that coffee exactly how I get in London. And often you're traveling places where the coffee is completely different from what it is. And you just want something that kind of represents what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into a little bit about, I guess, working in some of the best places then. So, so you, I guess moving from that sort of period of you were discovering hospitality and realizing how to put a great restaurant sort of shift together, and moving up in America, and then talk us through the next steps, and I guess how you became a kind of the sort of maitre d of the year and all that sort of stuff. Rockstar maitre d' kind of like that journey.
You need to just like first of all define like what is a maitre d'.
Okay, good. Okay,
break
good.
it down for
all
us.
right, all right. So it's funny because you know, I worked through the ranks, but it's not until I came to London that I was given that role, and that's when I work, you know, with Chris Kerb and Jeremy King at the Wolseley. So a maitre d', I think people don't really understand. You know, it's maitre d' is really looking after not only the book and the clients, but you know everything the lights, you know, the service. You know, you're looking at the lights, the service, the customers, the preparation for the briefing. You know, you're setting the tone for the whole night. Who's coming in? Who's not coming in? Where are we going to, even sitting people at the right location? Because you have government officials that cannot even remotely be next to each other. And then you have movie stars, and then you have people to deal with. And who are you going to see?
Husbands and wives.
No, husbands and wives.
You shouldn't be next to each other.
Exactly. And you have there's a lot of going on apart from the seating plan. It's just you're literally that's why they call it the maestro. It's a symphony, and there's 350 people playing the instrument, and you're guiding through the process. It's knowing, you know, oh my God, this has got to get here, or you know, so being able to talk to your customers about everything, whether it's a government or it's a hospitality issue, what's happening, you know, and that's how you know, you retain your team by training them really well and driving them to get promoted within and doing all that. With your clients, you know, you're trying to get them to come to you as often as you can. So by providing the best service there is all the time and notice little details. I mean, I'm crazy. I've met some people that in the middle of service, I stop a service because a light bulb was not changed. And I put my napkin on top of the chair. I stopped the whole service. I changed the light bulb. And then I took all the managers aside, said, you should have noticed this before it happened. So you kind of, you know, you're part of this symphony that you're orchestrating everything that's happening from the bar team to the baristas to the service, and you really need to know everything that's happening. And then if you go back, you know, to you know, Le Gavroche, for example, you know, a maitre d' will come in and will carve a duck or will juice things that they used to do, which is amazing to do also. Maitre d' really is a restaurateur that knows, you know, especially, you know, coming, you've done every single position. Now you're kind of, you know, often you see me in the front door, but also you saw me running around, talking to the chef, calling the chef, slowing the pace. You know, there's too many, when you're doing 800 covers, you're doing 500 covers for dinner, you're calling your chef going, listen, you need to slow down. And then making, you know, 50 people wait at the bar instead of sitting everybody at the same time. So it's just the knowledge of, you know, and that's why I love and how creative it is. You're dealing with problems on table 50. You're dealing with MI5 on table 22. You're dealing with the CIA on table, and you're dealing with Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie on the private dining room. And you have a homeless trying to get in, and someone trying to steal your furniture. You're literally dealing with so many problems.
I feel like these
are
all real things that's probably happened to you. And you know, and often stories where I remember the lights going off at the Wolseley at 8 p.m. and going to every table saying, listen, we need to evacuate, because the first thing that happens, you know, they shut the kitchen.
Right,
and then the kitchen needs to evacuate, and everybody's evacuating. People are going, is this part of the show? No. You know, we're closing.
This is a nightmare.
So I think, you know, often I would, if you know me well, you hear me saying, I think if us, you know, hospitality operators went to the government, I think we can fix the government very quickly. Because we you know, so you're working through the ranks. You've done every single position, and now you're in a position of power that you are, you know, essentially making sure that things happen. In the restaurant business, things happen all the time. How do I deal with the problem? Right? How do someone is calling and yelling at me about something that happened, and lower the tone in your voice and listen to the person and dealing with the problem? I mean, so much that within that position that you've learned things from previous job, and now you're in this position of authority that the bottom line is Cirque du Soleil, right? We need to perform. and someone's spending a lot of money in that dinner and they're celebrating. And our job really is to make that person walk out of there going, you know what, that place was incredible. And you need to hide all the problems, in the background and not and let anybody see it. So a maitre d', I think, often now I see a lot of articles and people talking about maitre d's, how important that role is. I guarantee you that role is going to come back. And it's going to come back strongest. You're not only going to see that in really nice restaurants, In-N-Out, one of my favorite places in California. I mean, you look at this kitchen and you look at the way they treat you from the minute you order to the minute they're wiping the floor next to you or bringing your ketchup to you. It's pure hospitality. And I think, people go out to eat, and the clients are smart now. They know the product. They know what are you paying for. And you know what? You got to treat people with respect and look after them. And you can't just rely on your product being good anymore. It's got to be incredible. And people are very forgiving too.
Yeah, I think that. So when we started out, we were this big company, and maitre d's, there wasn't a position. That wasn't a position that was in any of the brands. We had 20 odd brands that scaled, up to sort of not I wouldn't ever say it's fine dining, but sort of bistro dining.
Yeah.
They were proper restaurants, and it wasn't even like, oh, we don't have this role because we can't afford it or anything. It just wasn't talked about, wasn't a thing.
No, like the world had almost moved on in sort of that lower level of...
Yeah, in outside of fine dining or proper, proper restaurants, I guess I'll say. It was, it's something that everyone is talking about the same thing, about wanting that hospitality and wanting to do all the things that you've just described that you do as a maitre d', but they don't have that. They didn't have that role. I find it kind of really interesting that you think it's going to come back, and I agree. But we've talked about this a lot. I think that some of those roles are like divvied out into GMs and other managers and hosts, but it's not the same thing. And I'm sort of fascinated to see how that plays out, especially in lower levels of sort of casual dining.
Completely.
How you can bring that in.
I know exactly what you're saying, because I think a lot of operators are reactional, right? So we went through Brexit, and then we went through COVID, and that was a really difficult period. And then a lot of people left the country, and then a lot of people got promoted within jobs where they did not really qualify, but they were getting salaries were coming out. Everybody was paying a lot for chefs, salaries double, if not triple, and we're paying a lot for those people. And what happened then? We got GMs and we got executive chefs that didn't know what they were doing, and then there was something that happened in our business. And so now, it's you can't really judge what's happening with operators, because they're trying to cut costs everywhere they can, because it's so difficult to run a business. In the best days, your profit margin 10 to 15%. If you're lucky, 20, 18. Now we have so many things working against you. In order for those positions to become available, you got to have being those restaurants in Mayfair and Icebridge or be part of hotels. You see hotels popping up everywhere. Why? Because, they're charging £1,500, £1,000 for a room. So they don't care what the restaurant is downstairs, because they're making their money there. Yeah. So hotels are opening all those restaurants downstairs. They're, some of them are empty, right? But they have the money, the power to do that. So I think it's just about, whatever you have, deliver the best training. Deliver the best welcome. Hire people that have integrity and love what they do. And also, it's the intention. Look, let's talk about In-N-Out. It's a burger place providing, their menu is simple. They have few choices. There's few choices for beverage, but they deliver the best product. So instead of having that 300 item menu, have a smaller menu. Work with your team. Have a team that really understand that making people look. Bottom line is that's what I talk in my TED Talk, right? It's people will forget what you said. People forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's what companies need to wake up now, because you go to a place now, you don't treat me correctly, you don't train your staff correctly, you go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in my business, myself and my business partner, we are, we can be. Everyone talks about authenticity and being genuine, and we can be, because it's our business, and we sort of built it from the ground up. And also, you've had that experience of when you're inside that and it's your own thing, it is authentic. But we're trying to, I guess, as an industry, we're trying to create authenticity at a massive scale sometimes, which is, and it's the thing that's so hard. It's the thing that people are really struggling to do, I wonder if that investing in the role of someone who is, there just to deliver that and look after guests, and it's not part of a service cycle, part of a model that is, about efficiency as well as, and that's not doing service. It's just pure hospitality. Kind of that may be something to solve the problem of why do people feel like lots of businesses aren't delivering hospitality?
I think you said everything there. I think there are companies out there that really hospitality is part of their values. They have values. They have a structure in place, and this is what they want. And there's companies out there that are just ticking the box to say that. But now performance, the money happens on the floor. If you have a restaurant that does lunch and dinner, you need to have a good lunch in order to make profit. Because if you don't, before we had 3 seatings at nighttime. You had pre-theater, okay, and you had the whole evening, and you had post-theater. Pre-theater and post-theater, depends where you are, you might not have any. Yeah. Right? If you don't have a studied lunch crowd that you're doing 80 to 100 covers, you're not going to be successful. So there's a lot of parts there, and what you said is really important because I think it comes from us. A lot of these companies, they see this, we got to do this, that's on the P&L. Forget the P&L. If you put your head down and if you really focus on training your team all the time, you're asking questions, you're doing tests, you're training, and once they're on the floor, they're performing, and you're monitoring that. You're doing your 3 months probation, and you continue that cycle. That is just like a student, right? Can you imagine if you just hire 34 of the best football players in the world, and you just put them there? Okay, we're good. Yeah. We don't need to train. We don't need to do this. We don't need to do... The Brazilian national team is right now. These guys are going to train all week until they play Senegal on Saturday. All right, so they have a schedule. They have a training process. So any sports, anywhere in the world, if you're a musician, you need to do the same thing. So now you can't just go, let's just tick the box. No, it's something that it's always, it never ends. You're always training. So more you train your team, more prepared they are, better your service is going to be, better your hospitality is going to be, more that you have managers. If you have a general manager and he's got so many tasks to do. If you change all your managers, you have 5 managers, and you change all their tasks every 3 months, then it's a cycle. Everybody's learning. Same thing, the reason we have a pilot and a co-pilot in a plane is that simple. If that pilot has a heart attack, someone needs to land that plane. Same thing with their driver's license. It sounds so stupid, but in order for me to drive, I have to driver's license. I got to read a book, and then I got to do a driving test. And then if I do that well, I pass and I do it. So now it's that simple. So if every company is putting their effort, looking after their teams, training the teams, promoting with them, looking after, making sure that they're okay as a human being, I see you. And if we are all doing the same thing in every sector, man, our places are going to be good because we're checking the box. Managers now don't check anymore. They forgot what it is to be a manager. Tick that box. Check the box.
Yeah.
And it is mad that when you talk about it like that, like if we actually did that, like if we treated it like a proper sports team, would we be 20% better on sales?
Yeah.
100%.
100%. The stadium is going to be full.
And then the whole model's full. The whole model's
the jerseys
sorted.
are going to sell because everybody wants to be part of it.
Yeah, I think about this a lot about fitness. So you lose fitness. So I do a lot of cycling, and I have these mad endurance events. I've just signed up to a 1,000-kilometre race and a 24-hour race. So you just keep going, and I am not in shape at the moment. Right? So I got back on my bike the other day, and I was knackered after an hour and a half. And it is about fitness, and it's exactly the same thing in operations. I think you need to be in it and doing it, and you lose fitness quite quickly, and you build it back up. And I think that we look at our staff, sometimes we're expecting them to be exactly you, expect them to be Brazilian national team and they're Conference League, and you have to train them, and you suddenly you want them to go run a marathon. But if you haven't done the training, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
You're not going to survive.
And then you have operators. This guy just closed the night, and now they're making him working first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the best performing that day. The rota, nobody does it right. You're scheduling people appropriate, doing all the things that should be really managed well, and we don't do that.
Yeah.
A lot of companies don't do that. So if you emphasize on there's rules about certain things, and people are exhausted, working double, picking up the shift, someone didn't call sick. I was just in a restaurant 2 days ago for breakfast where someone didn't show up, and the hostess was looking after us, right? So most people in a restaurant will not know that. I noticed because I asked her, because I'm in the business. And she goes, yeah. And I notice everything. So people don't notice those things. But I think if we were to do those things, that investment will pay you off. And look, we got the Danny Meyers of this world. We have the Daniel Boulud of this world. We have operators that are doing that, and they're thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are amazing examples. I had lunch yesterday. I was saying at Bouchon Racine, and the guys there were brilliant. It was really, really just professional but relaxed and easygoing. But the knowledge of the waiters was spot on. They pitched it perfectly for us. And I was noticing different tables around us, a couple of old boys behind us who got slightly different service. It's kind of regulars, but still all good. So it was the right, appropriate service for the right time. And then at the end of the meal, front of house manager or part owner, I think, came over and said, I know you guys are in the industry. Here's a little drink on me. And it was great. And
it's lovely.
We walked out feeling like $1 million, went and had a pint downstairs in the pub.
That's it.
And we just reflected on, it's just more money. We're going to go back. I'm telling you about it. I'm saying it's great. I'm going to send people there. It's just the way it works, right? It's simple. But to get that done all the training needs to sit behind it. I think
and not even just the training there, like the empowerment, the reinforcement, like the ability, like we've worked so many places where it would be the opposite of acceptable to treat someone to a little drink.
Yeah.
Say thank you.
It's too rigid. We'd be too worried that they can't trust the operator because, it's a stock management issue because you've got 2,000 sites, and if everyone's doing that across the numbers start to get big. But then,
But you don't think about doing it from the top line view of,
But if you're doing that, you're creating regulars. You're creating people that go in a restaurant often, and generosity is part of our business. I mean, generosity goes a long way.
Yeah,
and it works.
And I think it's so easy to make decisions that sort of, you set these red lines of generosity. This is something we do, whether it's free bread or free tap water, or whatever. This is or the portion size. And then it's, when you get to scale, it's easy just to say, well, let's just nick a bit there and let's not do the bread, or let's charge a bit for it. And all of a sudden you take a few of those things away. You don't know which one it is, but a few of them together, suddenly you're not generous anymore.
Oh, completely.
It's a mess.
Yeah, and for me, I don't know about you, but charging people for bread and butter, charging people for olive oil and bread, I find it ridiculous.
I've heard you talk about this
before. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. It's so sad. You go to a restaurant and olive oil, and if it's an Italian restaurant, or butter should be on the table, and that should be a hidden cost.
Just build it in. Yeah, build it
$5.50. I mean, everything's $5.50, and I think it's sad. I think it really is sad. It's part of what the restaurant is all about.
But that is that's maybe, like, I grew up always having bread on the table for dinner, but that's maybe something from like a Brazilian or like continental thing that we're not, maybe it's a British thing, we're not sort of used to that, but it's such a fundamental part of, like, bread, water, maybe a glass of wine. That's part of a meal,
Yeah.
From a very young age, that was always on our dinner table, and that was like, I think my parents kind of always had that sense of, we're going to sit down and eat a meal together, big family, all going at it. I've heard you talk before about that experience of, like, South American families, like being a bit crazy. It's a bit crazy. It's quite high energy.
It is. We all have I tell my boys that all the time. I mean, my job was to squeeze the orange juice, and my family would not drink bottled orange juice. It had to be freshly squeezed.
Yeah.
And so everybody had a job, a position. You cut the bread, you make the salad, you help with this, and it's a big thing. We all sit together and we eat together, and I think it's a beautiful thing. It's some of the old things. A family that talks to each other, eats together, stays together. I think it's so important, and those values. I'll tell you some things that annoys me. I see someone eating in a tube. Go to the park. There's a 20 minutes that you must have, that you gotta, it's a spiritual thing, that you're eating, you're feeding your body. Okay, so whatever you put inside needs to be good. Okay, and then secondly, respect these moments. And I see people eating on that tube where rats sleep at night, and you're rushing to get to the next thing. And this, it's one of the things that managers don't have: time management.
Yeah, and I believe that you told him that as well on the tube.
I